Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft, the worship of Satan.
Welcome back to my latest video, everybody. Today I wanted to bring you a very, very important one that is of a topic that we've been discussing quite a while on this channel. And hopefully this video is going to help flesh out some ideas that we've discussed previously, ideas that may have confused you or just left you feeling a little bit lost. Now, what I am referring to specifically here is ciphering and tumbling. Today's video is called The Science of Ciphering. Now, I know I have already shown you guys how to tumble and cipher words in previous videos, but we have never really got into the nitty-gritty and the actual theory behind it and why it is so important. And most pertinent of all is how it actually works and why it works. This is going to be the key in this video, the how. I know many of you will think I pull some of these things out of thin air for no reasoning or any real logic behind my thought process, but I'm hoping this video will shed a little bit more light on my personal thought process when I'm coming to some of these decisions. Give you a little bit more logic behind my claims, because I can assure you that everything that I've ever tried to tell you or teach you can be backed up with solid evidence. So today's video is going to evidence the science of ciphering and tumbling and show you why it is an integral part of our language. And if you ever want to understand the true meaning behind words, then ciphering and tumbling is something that you really, really must get to grips with. So if you've not already watched my previous video on tumbling and ciphering, I would suggest watching it before this one. If not, I will give you a brief recap. Honestly, it is quite simple. To tumble and cipher, all you need to do is remove any vowels from a given word by tumbling it down to its roots consonants. Then you cipher through the different vowels with those same root consonants. The point here is to show that all root consonants have some form of meaning which is consistent among all variables, a meaning that you cannot ascertain until you begin to cipher. Okay, now let me explain that a little more. And let me do that with an example here, okay? All the words that we're going to be looking at and studying today will be ciphering one vowel. Okay, so let's take the word band. So we begin by tumbling it down to its roots consonants, which gives us B and D. Following this, we cipher through all the vowels in order to ascertain 5 different words. If we did this with the root B and D, we would get band, bend, bind, bond, and bund. As you can see, we have ciphered through all of the different vowels and placed them into our root. Now we look at the etymological roots and the definitions of these words and see if we can find any correspondences. So the definition of band, as it states, group of people joined for a purpose. The definition of bend is shape or force into an angle. The definition of bind is bring things together. The definition of bound is to tie up. And the definition and etymological roots of the word bund are an alliance or a league. Okay, so think Bundesliga for my football fans out there. Now, if we just look at all of these definitions holistically, we can see that they're quite literally all saying the same thing, just with a slightly different variation. With the main overarching definition of all 5 words being revolved around bringing things together in one way or another, whether that be people or objects. Okay, for example, bund is an alliance or a league. Okay, well, band could also be considered an alliance or a league, considering it's a group of people joined together for a purpose. Both of those definitions can be linked with bind and bound. Bind means to bring people together, so binding people together in an alliance or a league or a particular group for a purpose. And if bound also means to tie up, then we can say that those in the bund or the band have been tied up together. Again, all of these definitions mean the exact same thing. Okay, so if bend means to shape something into an angle or force it into an angle, from a metaphysical standpoint, we can say that some things may have to be forced together in order for them to be binded or bound. In the same respect, people have to be forced into alliances or allegiances or groups, bending their own personal will. So again, we can find that the word bend also has applicability here for band, bind, bound, and bund. Ultimately, what we conclude from this 5 cipher set is that band, bend, bind, bound and bund are all the same word, with the same overarching definition operating by way of the root BND. Okay, now we can also ascertain a numerical code for this root, which would be 214.4, which would reduce down to 254. Now, considering what we've been talking about and discussing regarding the definitions revolving around alliances and bending things into shape, I find this hit very interesting, along with these two. Both are some form of alliance or a league or group of people who have joined forces for a purpose, and it has the same numerical correspondence as the etymological root of BND. Now, to show you just how consistent this method is, let's take that same root word but add another consonant. Okay, so we'll add an L. So now we're working off the root BLND. So once we cipher in our vowels, again we get another 5 words, which are bland, blend, blind, blonde and blund. Again, we apply the same technique as the previous 5 sets of words and ascertain definitions and etymological roots. Once we do that, we find that bland means a lack of flavour, blend means a lack of form or solidarity, blind means a lack of sight, blonde means a lack of melanin or colour, and blund means a lack of knowledge. Think of the word blunder, i.e. making a mistake. Again, let's take these definitions holistically. We can see that there is an overarching theme running through all 5 of these words. They all seem to be talking about some form of lack in one way or another. Lack of flavour, lack of sight, lack of knowledge, lack of form, and lack of melanin. So what we can conclude is that bland, blend, blind, blonde, and blund ultimately have the same root definition, which operates by way of the BLND. Because they're all talking about a lack of something, okay? Okay, let's do another one. Say, for instance, we start with the root GLD and we cipher in our vowels. We get gald, geld, gild, gold, and gold. Okay, gald is just another word for glad, which means to shine. Geld is a payment or a tribute. Gild means to thinly cover with gold. Gold is obviously a precious yellow metal. And gold with a U means to shine yellow. Okay, now that I've already explained how this process works, I'm sure you can already see the connections here. Gald is a defunct form of the word glad, which means to shine. Okay, the same can be said for gold with a U, which means to shine yellow specifically. Gold is obviously a precious metal, and the term gild literally means to cover thinly with gold. Now, geld can be traced back to the terms of a payment and a tribute. Well, what was the most common payment in the ancient world and most common form of tribute? You know, before they turned it all into fake fiat notes. Of course, it was gold, okay? And like I said, the same can be said for tributes. The most wealthy sectors of society would always offer gold as a tribute to their gods. Again, guys, we have every word related to this GLD root has something to do with gold. Whether that be its visual shine, the use of it as payment or tribute, or even its use in smithing. There is clearly an identifiable consistency throughout the definition of these words, which show the root GLD. Okay, let's do one more before we move on. Okay, let's say, for instance, we start with the root BLCK, okay, and we cipher in our vowels. So we get black, bleck, blick, block, and bluck. And for the definitions and etymological roots, we get black, the darkest colour owing to the absence or a complete absorption of light. Bleck is any black fluid substance. Blick is a racial slur for a very dark-skinned person. Block, the only colour that can fully block out the sun and absorb all wavelengths of light, is black. And bluck is just a nickname meaning black or dark. Okay, so again, I'm sure you can make the connections here yourself, so I will not bore you with the obvious again. But it seems that all of these words related to the BLCK root all have consistent definitions, okay? Now, with this knowledge about consonants and vowels in mind, company logos take on an entirely different and new meaning. Look at these, for example. Notice they are all roots. Very rarely do you see vowels used in brand initial designs, and this is because they understand the true power of ciphering and tumbling. Now, I'm not going to run through all of these because I really don't have time, so I will just highlight a few, okay? So, Louis Vuitton Their symbol is LV, and if we cipher in some vowels, this is the same root as the word evil. Cable News Network, aka CNN, we can cipher in some vowels. This is the root of Canaan. Okay, Warner Brothers, show initials WB, we cipher in some vowels and we get bow. We all know about bow. Okay, and this doesn't just apply to companies, this applies to everything. For instance, the rapper Machine Gun Kelly, whose logo is his initials, which read MGK. You'll also see people address him as this in interviews and online and in person. Everybody calls him MGK, not his full name, okay? Now, MGK is the exact same root as the word magic. And know that magic with a K is very different to magic with a C. Magic with a K was popularized by Crowley in accordance with his thesis on Philema and the will. Consequently, anytime we see magic with a K, it tends to be leaning toward the more nefarious purposes, and it's also to differentiate it from stage magic. As for Machine Gun Kelly, aka MGK, I think we know what type of magic he's practicing behind closed doors with his MTF partner Megan Fox, the Monarch Slave. Okay, now check this. MGK is also a four-way match with CNN, which makes so much sense because it is the same seed from Canaan or CNN that's practicing the magic or the MGK throughout Hollywood and the entertainment industry today. We also find that it's a four-way match with MND, which is of course the root for the word mind. And as you all know, the Canaanites practicing magic with a K are after your mind, which is why they worship the deity Pan, who keeps us in a perpetual nap with his musical abilities. Okay, so in this respect, you could consider every music artist acting on behalf of Pan. All they are there to do is put you to sleep and make you docile, and if you need more proof of that, take the word artist, strip it down to its root, RTST. We find that it's a triple match with all of the words we just spoke about. MGK, the artist, performing black magic from CNN for Pan, the one who makes man nap. Can you see how all this connects, guys? I hope I haven't just gone too fast for all of this, but this is just more of like a little top-up video for you to add on to what we've already discussed about ciphering and tumbling, and just to show you that if you think that MGK, artist, black magic, Canaan, Pan, if you think all of this is a coincidence, then you really need to just reorient your focus on the world, because I promise you none of this stuff is a coincidence. All of this stuff has been meticulously and carefully planned, and all of these things adding up one after another isn't by chance and isn't by coincidence. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there now because I don't want to overload your brain too much, and like I said, this was just an introduction into the basics of tumbling and ciphering and the importance of it and why it is such a fundamental tool that we must use. In part 2, we will dive more into how these root terms play a pivotal role in maintaining our simulation through the use of our hijacked language. See you next time.